Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Points. It's just me in the studio today. But I do have some guests to help me out with the show. In particular, I've got Murtaza Hussain joining us to talk about Tucker's interview with the president of Iran. We're going to share a few key moments there and get his reaction to all of that. We also have Bibi Netanyahu back at the White House for a third time. This time, he is nominating President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. We've got other developments there as well that we will get Murtaza's reaction to. Then, we're also going to have Glenn Greenwald join. He has been closely following what is going on with Palantir and Peter Thiel. I'm going to ask him what he puts the odds at that Peter Thiel is actually the Antichrist. So there's a lot to dig into there that is very consequential. I also want to get Glenn's view on the Epstein flop and the cope that is going on right now in MAGA world. Which I have to say is world historic. I'm actually going to start the show, though, with the newest tariff announcement. It's sort of like a Liberation Day 2.0. Trump is unilaterally announcing tariffs on a number of very significant countries. We'll get a little bit of sound from him. From Caroline Levitt. And sort of parse through what is exactly going on there. We also have updates coming out of Texas, as the death toll has surged even higher. Now over 100 individuals dead because of those devastating floods. We have new information about the response, or the failures thereof. And also, Ted Cruz you'll recall previously he was caught in Cancun during a natural disaster in Texas. This time, he was in Greece sightseeing and was spotted as the floods ravaged the state and the response continued to unfold. In addition, I want to bring you some truly shocking images out of LA as federal immigration agents performed a militarized sweep of a park. Ken Klippenstein, a great friend of the show, was able to get leaked documents talking about the goals of this sweep, which indications are may not have actually picked up a single person. It was more a demonstration, a show of force, to say, hey, these immigration agents, armed to the teeth and looking like a military occupation, can go anywhere and do anything. And there is nothing that the local government Karen base in this case can do to stop them. So, a lot to get to in this show. Before I jump into the tariffs information, I just want to thank you guys so much for supporting this show. If you are not a premium member and you want to become one, you get the show in your inbox early, with no ads. You get access to the premium AMAs. And you also get access to the full Friday show. Go ahead and sign up at breakingpoints.com. If that is not for you at this point, if money's tight or you just don't feel like it, if you can share the clips and like and subscribe, all that good stuff, that helps us out tremendously as well. Alright. So let's go ahead and get to this tariff announcement. Yesterday, about halfway through the day, Trump posts these letters, sort of preposterously written letters, to a couple of significant countries, announcing new 25% tariffs on those nations. Specifically here, we're talking about Japan and we're talking about South Korea. Now, these are both countries that are close allies of the U.S. So it shouldn't have been that difficult to get some sort of a trade deal with them. In fact, previously, Trump had negotiated a trade deal with them in his first administration. And yet, because his demands have been so hard to pin down and so unreasonable, they have actually been unable to come to terms. So, he unilaterally announced this new tariff rate to go into effect. And then later on in the day, we get an announcement that there are additional countries that are also having these unilateral tariffs placed upon them. You guys remember back in the early days after Liberation Day, and when we had the pause. We were told we were going to get 90 deals in 90 days. So far, we've gotten two sort of outlines of a deal with two countries. So, it certainly has not rolled out the way that it was originally portrayed. When Caroline Leavitt was asked about all of this, what it means, and where we're going, let's take a listen to what she had to say. I have the signed letters that went out to both South Korea and Japan today. And there will be approximately 12 other countries that will receive notifications and letters directly from the President of the United States. And weeks ago I stood at this podium and I told all of you that the President was going to create tailor-made trade plans for each and every country on this planet. And that's what this administration continues to be focused on. The President will also sign an executive order today delaying the July 9th deadline to August 1st. So the reciprocal tariff rate, or these new rates that will be provided in this correspondence to these foreign leaders, will be going out the door within the next month. Or deals will be made and those countries continue to negotiate with the United States. We've seen a lot of positive developments in the right direction. But the administration, the President and his trade team want to cut the best deals for the American people and the American worker. That's what they're focused on. And in the effort of transparency, these letters will continue to be posted to Truth Social. They will take the letter seriously because they have taken the President seriously. And that's why the President's phone, I can tell you, rings off the hook from world leaders all the time who are begging him to come to a deal. So there you go. That is a little bit of what the official White House line was yesterday. Let's go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen so you can get a little bit of a sense of these letters. The White House sent near-identical letters to the leaders of Japan and South Korea announcing sweeping new 25% tariffs on all their exports to the U.S. starting August 1st. This is significant because the previous deadline was tomorrow, July 9th. And so, there had been some confusion about whether that was going to be a hard and fast deadline. They're now pushing that to August 1st. There is continued confusion about whether the new August 1st deadline is actually a hard and fast deadline. So, we'll have to see what ultimately pans out there. But let me read you just a little bit of these letters because it is certainly trademark Trumpian language and sort of preposterous that this is the way that the President of the United States communicates with significant nations around the world. In any case, one of them reads, "This is the one to the Prime Minister of Japan, dear Mr. Prime Minister. It is a great honor for me to send you this letter. In that it demonstrates the strength and commitment of our trading relationship and the fact the U.S. of A. has agreed to continue working with Japan despite having a significant trade deficit with your great country. Nevertheless, we've decided to move forward with you. But only with more balanced and fair trade, in all caps. Therefore, we invite you to participate in the extraordinary economy of the United States. The #1 market in the world. Weirdly capitalized, by far. We have had years to discuss our trading relationship with Japan and concluded we must move away from these long-term and very persistent trade deficits, in caps for some reason, engendered by Japan's tariff and non-tariff policies and trade barriers. And then he goes on to describe how we will be unilaterally implementing these 25% tariffs. Let's go ahead and put the next piece up on the screen here to show you the rates that were announced yesterday on these countries. To go into effect on August 1st. You've got Cambodia at 36%. Thailand at 36%. Bangladesh at 35%. Serbia at 35%. Indonesia at 32%. Bosnia at 30%. Tunisia at 25%. And then you've got Japan and South Korea at 25%. In addition, he says that any retaliation will be met with increased tariffs. So he said if any of those countries increase their tariff rates vis-a-vis the United States, then that additional amount will be added on top. Needless to say, these are quite high rates. These are significant tariff rates. It's easy to become a little bit numb to this stuff at this point because we've had them on again, off again, back on. We're taking a pause. We've got a deadline. And now we've got a new deadline coming in. But I think it's worth just wrapping our minds around the fact that if you're talking about 25% tariffs on significant trading partners like South Korea and Japan, that is going to have a significant impact on the economy. Economists will tell you it's very likely to raise prices on those goods coming in from those countries. Not to mention what companies do when they have an excuse to hike prices, they hike prices. So it's very possible that all of that comes down the pike. This all comes with a continued level of extreme uncertainty about what any of this is. What any of it's going to be. And where we're ultimately going to end up. And as I said before, part of the reason why countries like Japan, which have a very close relationship with the United States, were unable to strike some sort of a deal with the Trump administration is because they basically came and said, effectively, okay, well, what do you want from us? And no one could really answer them. Some of these nations have effectively zero tariffs on the U.S. But because Trump feels like we have a trade deficit with them, that is just ipso facto an indication that something is unfair about the relationship. And so he has to put these tariffs in place. So that's kind of the top line of where we are. You know, I mentioned before that there continues to be questions about the deadlines. We had the July 9th deadline. Well, that's tomorrow. That's now being pushed out to August 1st. Is the August 1st deadline real? Trump got asked a couple of days ago about these deadlines and how hard and fast they are. And he was perplexingly confused himself. It really raised some questions about how much he is involved. Even in this area on tariffs. The area where he seems to be the most engaged and enthusiastic. It really raised some questions about how plugged in he is. Even to this centerpiece of his economic agenda. Let's go ahead and take a listen. Mr. President. Do the tariff rates change at all on July 9th or do they change on August 1st? What are you talking about? Tariff rates. Do they change on July 9th or August 1st? No. They're going to be tariffs. Tariffs are going to be the tariffs. I think we'll have most countries done by July 9th. Yeah. Either a letter or a deal. But they go into effect on August 1st. So you can see Trump there saying, oh, I think most of the countries will be done by July 9th. This was just a couple of days ago. And he's saying, oh, no. I think it'll be done by July 9th. Again. Tomorrow is July 9th. And we now have this announcement that no. Actually, we're pushing that deadline off to August 1st. And you can see Howard Lutnick having to jump in to sort of try to clean things up. Saying, whoa. 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 I mean, July. Sure. Mr. President. But actually they go into effect on August 1st. There seem to be significant parts of this administration that Trump has just checked out from. He seems completely checked out from the immigration piece, which appears to have been completely outsourced to Stephen Miller, who has become incredibly powerful within this administration and even, it appears, within foreign policy decision-making. But I really thought that tariffs were the one piece that Trump was really super engaged with. This is a guy that is, playing golf on a lot of days. Which is kind of extraordinary given that you would think this would be a very busy job. And so it was just interesting to me to see him even so perplexed by the question and so out of sorts on what the answer would be about this very significant deadline. Let's go and put the next piece up on the screen because this is significant as well. This was the market reaction yesterday. The Dow slid more than 400 points. That's a significant market drop. Looking at the futures this morning, it says S&P 500 futures are rebounding from the sell-off as investors bet that Trump tariffs will end up lower than what he announced. So, Wall Street appears to be taking the taco bet again. And given the ups and downs of this policy, it's hard to blame anyone for thinking, okay, sure, he's doing Liberation Day 2.0 and announcing these very high rates that would be extraordinarily disruptive if they actually go through. But are they actually going to go through? Who the hell knows at this point? In addition, there was also a significant shot taken at the so-called BRICS nations contained in this as well. Let's go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen. This is from the Wall Street Journal. They say, Trump steps up his fight with BRICS nations. China and Russia push back after U.S. President threatened to place tariffs on countries embracing the policies of the group. I'll read you a little bit of this article. They say, President Trump's threat to put new tariffs on countries embracing the policies of the BRICS group has added fresh uncertainty to global trade and prompted pushback from Moscow and Beijing. Trump posted on social media that countries aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. On top, of course, of whatever he already decided he was going to charge them. The threat appeared to be a response to a statement put out by the group of emerging economies whose members include Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and others that took a swipe at Trump's policies. The BRICS group has long sought to present itself as a multilateral counterweight to a U.S. dominated world order. Although internal divisions and differing frameworks have often hobbled its quest for expanding its geopolitical influence, they have all been meeting at a summit in Rio de Janeiro and put out a joint declaration that said they had serious concerns about the rise of unilateral tariff and non-tariff measures. So that may have been what prompted this exchange from Trump. But there is a real concern that the world will move away from the United States of America and the dollar as the global reserve currency. That would be an incredible reckoning for this country and for this economy, where we are used to having what's been called the exorbitant privilege of the dollar being the world's reserve currency. That effectively means that the rest of the world is financing the debt and the deficit that we have accumulated now over years, and which the one big beautiful bill will expand even further. Now, I am not a big deficit hawk. I'm not one of these "how are we going to pay for it" kind of people. Especially because we see the way that rhetoric is always used just to take away social safety net programs that benefit the poor and the working class. And never to question, for example, the massive, now trillion-dollar defense budget that only ever goes up. Nor is it used to question how we're going to finance the extraordinary, giant, multi-trillion-dollar tax cuts being given to the wealthiest among us. However, if the world truly does move away from the dollar, and that is part of what the BRICS have sort of set up to do, and it's part of what Russia and China have been looking at as alternatives, you can hardly blame them, given how chaotic and unreliable the United States is at this point. If that actually does happen, it will be a significant reckoning in this country. The irony here, of course, Is that with his insane, unilateral trade war on the entire world? Trump is only hastening the arrival and increasing the logic for those countries that would want to move away from the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Last thing I've got for you is Peter Navarro getting asked about the original promise of 90 deals in 90 days that had been pledged. We were going to see deals being made at a pace we'd never seen before. Here is what he had to say about what happened with those 90 deals in 90 days. 90 deals in 90 days. I'm very happy. I am very happy with where we're at. We have had a global baseline tariff in place of 10%. We're collecting billions of dollars of tax revenues that are going to pay down for tax cuts. We've got continuing negotiations. And I think this is great. 90 deals in 90 days. Because the rest of the world has it so good that they're dragging their heels. But the president will not allow that. That's why the letters went out. That's all I'll say. So. Obviously. Just a bunch of nonsense spin and coke there. Needless to say. But. You know. To wrap this up. It all goes back to, what are we even doing here? There's never been any clear explanation of what the goal of these tariffs even is. Originally. Remember. We were told when they were being put on Mexico and Canada that it was about fentanyl. Then we were told. At times. Oh. This was about bringing back manufacturing jobs. Well. So far from what we've seen. This has been devastating actually to manufacturing. Especially when coupled with the rollback of industrial policy that was actually put in place by the Biden administration. You're going in the wrong direction in terms of manufacturing jobs. At other times. We've been told that this was about increasing revenue into the United States Treasury. Well. That goal is actually directly at odds with the goal of increasing manufacturing jobs. Because if you're reshoring, then you're going to have fewer goods being imported. And you will be decreasing the tariff revenue over time. So those two things are at odds. Trump seems fixated on the idea of us having a trade deficit with any country. Even though in some instances, like with the nation of Lesotho, they're a poor country. They just don't buy that much in terms of goods from us. And we buy diamonds and other natural resources from them. There's just naturally going to be an imbalance in that trade relationship. It doesn't mean they're ripping us off. So, we continue to have this central question of, what are you even trying to accomplish here? What even is the goal? How could you even measure whether or not this policy is successful when we've never ever gotten any sort of consistent answer about what this thing is ultimately for? In terms of his defenders, I feel like they've just sort of given up on trying to explain this. I'm sure you guys have seen that meme where it's like, Trump puts the tariffs in place and they say, this will bring back jobs. Then he takes them off again and they say, this is the art of the deal. I think they've just given up on talking about it altogether because any time you go in hard for whatever the current plan is, 3 days later there's some other new plan that you're having to turn around and now justify. And so, we're left in a familiar state of whiplash and confusion. This isn't just a game of numbers on a stock ticker or bizarre letters sent across the globe. This is about the price of goods for American families. The stability of jobs in our manufacturing sector. And the standing of the United States on the world stage. But amidst this chaos, there lies an opportunity for clarity. A real trade policy. One that truly benefits the American worker. Isn't built on spontaneous announcements and threats. It's built on a clear vision. Steady negotiation. And a genuine commitment to rebuilding our industrial base. Not just shaking up global markets for the sake of it. Perhaps the most significant deal to be made isn't with another country, but with the American people themselves. A deal for a coherent strategy that puts their prosperity and security first. Free from the daily drama. Hey! If you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people. And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com. That's right. Get the full show. Help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.